Just wanted to give you a quick context of, why I'm talking about this. So I moved to Singapore from India about 10 years back, and I used to spend, hours pouring into hundreds of videos and, why people watch what they watch. For example, I would fly down to Kuala Lumpur and tell my Malaysian audience about how a Brazilian video traveled all the way from Sao Paulo to Sabah, a grand distance of 16,000 kilometers. And kind of fascinating, we tell them how ideas can travel long distances just based on shared passions. And such stories, which are backed by data and in very surprising ways, surface them and stun my audiences into believing that I was actually spending enormous amount of time in their culture, in their markets. And some of the audience members would come walk up and ask me, how long did you live in Malaysia? You seem to know so much about us. And that kind of an aha moment was what I used to thrive on. And whichever market I used to go, whether Japan, whether Philippines, it would be the same reaction. And I guess, when I used to do that, like even 5 years back, that was a practice where I would manually go down and do that. But today, if you see, I have completely, stopped doing that. By the way, guys, my name is Anil. Thank you for joining, and thank you for the amazing conversation so far. I hope that whatever I'm going to tell you has a connection from what Rosanna shared with us, especially about the explosion of data and how that shapes your digital transformation. So my job, is I call myself the YouTube guy, and I work in one of the fastest Southeast Asian markets, Vietnam. And as I was mentioning, it's no longer about running SQL queries on big data tables to figure out top-watch videos. I stopped doing that. We have far more sophisticated tools now that, at a click of a button, especially leveraging all our work in machine learning and AI, where we apply it to billions of intent signals across our ecosystem to surface incredible insights. What would have taken me months or even years or not even humanly impossible to do it now in a matter of minutes, and then come out with clear hypotheses that we can immediately test and implement and learn and iterate from that. It's completely disrupted our process of consulting and selling marketing-based solutions or advertising solutions to our clients. And towards that point, when we look at the conversations that I have with my clients, I'm talking to several advertisers who find themselves on this journey, from very nascent. I'm just trying to, design a new operating model. I'm trying to, go beyond the traditional audience strategy to a digital strategy, to consolidate my silos of data, to even doing, all these explosion of things that are being suggested to me. So, for example, one of the examples is I speak to traditional TV advertisers, and when I tell them to go beyond targeting audiences of demographics and age and tap into passion points and show them ads that are of shorter attention spans, they look at me in shock. They're saying, like, for 50 years we've really done 30-second ads on TV very well. We have a solid process around that. Now you're asking us to ditch all that. So until we actually did an experiment and proved to them that for digital marketing, and especially if you want to go from your current position to where the industry is heading, you need to adopt a new model. And it still surprises them. And to me, the biggest takeaway was there are no companies that sit clearly in the nascent bucket versus the multi-moment bucket. Some of these tools that I'm going to show you or introduce you at once take you from a very nascent stage to a very sophisticated place. And I guess that's the beauty of technology, right? It shrinks the distance between you using a very traditional technology to a very advanced technology, or it shrinks the distance of the path to purchase funnel from a person knowing about your product to actually buying that product seconds later, due to the advances in the explosion of mobile devices, digital content, so on and so forth. So I think to me that is the clear thing of a company finding itself not just in one bucket of being nascent or emerging, but at once finding itself across the spectrum, even from one day to another in the same week. So I thought today I'll just take one slice of this, which is the data-driven creative, which I think will probably be a good session to end with, because there's a lot of visual involved in it, and I hope most of you will be able to relate with it. And so let me quickly move to this place where, no matter where you are, whether you find yourself as a digital laggard or very sophisticated, your objectives still remain the same. As a marketer, you have two jobs to accomplish. One is to create awareness of your product by capturing your audience's attention. And two, once you have that attention, convert it into action. Now, for decades, marketers have honed their art and rely on a very tried and tested process. Whether I speak to Unilever, whether I speak to P&G, they've mastered their art, and it's very difficult to move them from what's been a very successful strategy. But they still know, right? They're standing on a burning platform. So the recipe has always been this, right? In order to create great communication, you basically have these four-step process. You immerse yourself in the latest consumer trends that lead to an insight and a messaging and a message that is based on that insight. Then you intersect an unmet need and your product in the form of a brilliant idea. And you take that idea into production through lots of iteration. There are a lot of assets that you need to produce. And then finally, you distribute those assets in front of your target audience. And hopefully, if all of this works well, you have an incredible brand growth as a result of that communication strategy. Now, that's worked very well, but what we're seeing today is this whole shift from outsourcing chunks of this process to cloud and ML, right? So while ideas still come from brilliant creative thinking and strategic planning, a lot of insights, a lot of grunt work of production, a lot of media distribution has completely being outsourced. Those tasks are being outsourced to cloud and machine learning in a huge way. And that's where I feel that even though some of this audience is directly not related to marketing, it could provide a good foundation or a good way of thinking about a related industry that's outsourcing tasks to machines as part of its digital strategy. So let's talk about each of these steps to demystify them further. So let's talk about ideas, right? I don't want to spend too much time here. Ideas mainly are still, as I mentioned, very well done by human thinking, and I don't think we are yet at that stage where we can outsource that to machines where they can convert a piece of data into an idea. But beyond that, as I mentioned, there's so much more we can do when we outsource a lot of these tasks to machines. So the first one in this is insights. So if you look at it, where we are today, and as I was telling you about my journey, from data analysis to data science is what I would say the shift is, right? As a person who used to dig into hundreds of videos, with all my expert knowledge of my tools and my ability to then build a hypothesis out of it, is suddenly moving into this space where the machines do the grunt work. They can identify insights around what's unexpected and surface them in a way that is humanly impossible. So if you actually look at this example, this actually shows one of the Google Cloud technologies, a video intelligence API, that looks at hundreds and thousands of automotive videos from across different countries. We're talking about like a body of videos that have been uploaded across different countries to YouTube. And we find top performing, car videos uploaded by creatives by creators in order to analyze and identify essential visual elements that are surfacing from across these hundreds and thousands of videos, whether it's a display, whether it's the steering wheel, and to correlate with all those places in these videos where audiences' attention is either rising or falling, right? And if you're able to tag each of those videos at the points where audience attention is rising, you'll get to know what is working. And that is a huge thing which would humanly be impossible for you to do. Now, but that's only half the job done. And beyond that, why is that working takes you to the next step, which is then analyzing the captions, tagging the facial recognition, and looking at the sentiments that are happening within those video moments. And then trying to correlate that to audience attention gives you that next part of the answer, why is it working? Now, if you have to look at this, we do this now across different tentpole moments during a year, where we're able to look at large body of data, whether images or video, in order to surface tremendous insights to advertisers, which they would never have been able to do it in the past. So that's insights for you. Let's look at production, right? So, which is one of the most intensive and fragmented aspects of digital strategy. Like, did you know that it takes only 3 assets to run on television, right? So you have your core video, you build 3 versions of that, and you're able to reach 60-70% of your national audience via the television networks. Now imagine if you have to run the same campaign on digital, you would need 30 assets to run on different sizes, different formats, different publishers, and then that's an unimaginable complexity. And that overhead can quickly run into hundreds of variations of your ads, right? Now, if I'll show you this, right? The beauty of a digital strategy is to personalize your offering to each user based on the context and intent. I don't know how many of you remember this. Coke, a bunch of, some years ago, came up with a one-on-one personal messaging where they had your name printed on their bottles and their cans. Now, imagine they had 150 most used names, which they converted into personalized bottles. But imagine now doing that through video advertising to thousands of permutations, right? And we can do that using machine learning. We can do that using tools that automate a certain asset of yours and run different variations of that. So this tool, what I'm talking about, like, for example, and different publishers have these tools, but in YouTube, we have this thing called Director Mix, and it takes one base video asset, and then it multiplies that with different versions of copy, different versions of images, and different audio assets. And then it matches them to the time of the day, to the content that you're watching, in order to show customized ads at scale. So we call this personalization at scale. And this is only possible because of you being able to outsource a lot of your creative messaging variations to machines. And does this actually work? When we ran our studies, we found that across categories, a contextually relevant ad is any time better at making your audience remember your ad than a generic version. So just giving you a sense of how both across being able to provide insights to being able to automate your production tasks, we use big data tools and machine learning and cloud-based tools to scale this seamlessly. There are many, many more examples, but I hope that you've got this idea. We have another tool that literally automates, the grunt work. Often we find that you have a longer video creative, which needs many, many shorter versions of it. So this particular tool looks at one of your core assets. I wouldn't play this video in the interest of time, but this is a 15-second typical video ad. And then you feed that into our machine learning model. It looks at different segments of your longer creative and automatically reduces it to a 6-second commercial with the right smiles, with the right product shots, with the right music to convert it into multiple versions of shorter ads that then you can run across your audiences. Again, just one more example that saves hundreds and hundreds of hours for our creative agency partners who spend otherwise all this time manually editing their assets. So those are some of the couple of examples that allow us to showcase how we use tools that completely move you from a nascent stage of digital transformation into this cool organization that's tapping into your first party data, into intent signals that go much beyond traditional ways of targeting like age and demographics, and place you in a end of the spectrum of multi-moment marketing where you're actually being super relevant. You're automating your production, your insights to a highly personalized form, which actually works the best with today's digital audiences. So that's how we're seeing how incredibly well our advertisers are embracing this entire change, and we just think that this is going to be the way forward. Thank you very much.